introduce you to market research. What is market research? If you go by the definition of the American Marketing Association, it is gathering of information to solve the problems of marketing goods and services. In English, it's finding information about your customers, your competitors, your industry, your product. And specifically, what we're going to focus on today is the demographics, the people who buy your product or services. Who are they, how they live, where they live, what makes them tick. So I'm going to introduce you to a couple of databases very quickly. One is called $1 Million Directory. As Jamie mentioned, these databases can be accessed from Pierce County Library with a library card. You can access these remotely. We have that projected. The projector is not picking it up. Would you please? Yes, thank you.
We need the IT man.
So while he's trying to do that, I just wanted to go over some of that. These are some of the questions. What is the demand for my business, if you wanted to figure that out? Or what are the market forces that will affect my business? How much profit can I make at certain locations doing the same thing? What type of services do my customers prefer? This database that I'm going to highlight isn't just for businesses. It is also for anyone who wants to know about the community planning planners, city planners. Anyone who needs information about grant seekers, if you want to know who your community is that you're targeting. Particularly the lifestyles, the segmentation of the population into different groups by economic and various categories. Sorry, you can't get that one to come up. I'm just going to... Are we trying to fix that, or is that not working?
He went to get his...
He went to get that. So the two databases, one is called Demographics Now. Demographics Now is a geo-demographic segmentation software. What that is a 3-layered application that has a digital map, and on top of the digital map there's data, and in the middle of it, if you will, there's a database program that enables you to drill down and find information. Say if you were looking at the map of Tacoma, and you were looking at consumer expenditure for certain products, you could then drill down and see the same information for a smaller area. It's very sophisticated software. In fact, geo-demographic segmentation software is the most complicated software of any kind. There are 3 different companies that provide these software throughout the world, and the one we use is provided, the data is provided by Experian, and there's another one, the big one is called Esri, provides that. More or less they're the same thing, they just divide the population into different groups and segments. Like this one has the population going from the royalty, American royalty, the 0.5% of the people who own everything, and then the bottom of the, struggling societies or unclassified groups, and in between, the majority of people just fall in between these groups. And it depends on where they live, and that's how the classification takes place. If you're in a rural area close to a big city, like in Parkland Spanaway Library, that is close to an address that's close to our home base, then it will be definitely different from, say, if you were in a rural area. Your lifestyle is different. And the way that works is that sort of birds of a feather flock together principle. They figure that people who live in a neighborhood, they have a lot more in common. So the differences between people living in an area, amongst them, is far less than between that group and another group nearby. And this has been tried for many, many, many years. Businesses rely on this. This is what businesses will do when they perform a customer, research, doing market research to figure out who the customers are. The database in question that we're going to take a look at can tell you about how much people spend on various products in various locations. It also tells you about their income, ethnicity, language spoken at home, any kind of category you can imagine. It's about 60 different categories that totally you can drill it down. We can look on a map of Tacoma and tell you where people are paying alimony or child support. You can actually see it on a digital map. Or contributions to a church, for instance. If you were to target, if you're doing business with a group and you want to know more about them, this is the database for you, because you really get to know the community. Each segment, so there's about 71 segments, and the population is segmented into 71 groups. Each segment, we can show you how you can run a report, about 20-page report, that financial, how many kids they have, all kinds of stuff you can imagine. Savings, cars, what did they watch, what TV channels. We can actually look at it by zip code and tell you in the past 7 days what television channels they have watched in certain areas. So really, if you're advertising, if you want to know the community, it's an excellent tool. At the library, we have a software that is kind of similar to that one, and we have the library data imposed on this database. So we know our customers, we know that when they check out something, where they're actually checking it out from. So we get a better idea of how to serve them, what to provide for them. The other database that I wanted to kind of a little bit highlight is Dun & Bradstreet. It's the Dun & Bradstreet $1 Million Directory. That one actually is a business directory. We can look up companies, or if you wanted to know who your competitors are in an area, you could look up by any of the codes, like NAICS code or the SIC code of line of business. You can see all the businesses that do similar things that you do. So if you wanted to start a business, that would be your first step. You wanted to know who your competitors are. You can also find all kind of neat information, such as financial statements and ratios and things of that nature. So what would be the gross margin doing a certain business? How much money can you expect to make? What is the net income? All of the nitty-gritty stuff of the business that is, most especially for the startups. When they come to want to start a business, a lot of times I get these questions like, what business should I do? They really aren't sure. They just want to do a business, especially because of the bad economic times. A lot of people gave up looking for jobs and they wanted to open a business. And so we developed at Pierce County Library putting these databases together. And at 6 of our locations, the job and business center locations, we have trained staff. I personally make appointments with anyone who wants to learn more about this stuff, businesses, startups, and they come in and I spend about an hour with them and try to solve the problem, question that they have, come up with the answers using these resources. And these aren't the only resources we have. I often refer them to the University of Washington Foster Business School. That is the premier business school in the area where you can find a lot of stuff that we don't have. But amongst libraries locally, Tacoma, King County, Thurston County, probably the only library that does this effectively is Pierce County Library. We have spent quite a lot of time and efforts doing this. We often felt like the business community was underserved. And partially it's because the business community, unlike an average person that walks into the library and says, can you show me what those books are? Often they don't exactly know what it is they want. And so we have to decipher it a little bit. This is kind of a different interview that we will have to have with the business community. Or they need a specific piece of information, and that we can look it up for them. So we had to develop these methods of how to deal with the business community. In fact, I went to some certified business consultants and retired professors and asked them, how do we help businesses? And they often said, well, we don't know. We come to you guys for that. We come to the library. So what it is that we have kind of taken over some functions of what usually academic libraries were only doing. And they were only doing it academically for the students and not for the businesses. Beyond that, without having to see the database so I can show you, I can just talk about it, how fabulous it is.
How current is the data? I mean, it's intriguing. How current you're drawing it from different sources, but
Absolutely.
How current is the data you're...
The data is, as you know, no country in the world collects data like the United States. There are all kinds of data, mostly from government sources. You can find information from Bureau of Labor Statistics, Census Bureau, the American Community Survey. But the data that is really important is the one that private companies have collected, like Simmons. Simmons is a company that years ago started collecting warranty cards that people send out when people used to write in the back of the pickup truck and send those warranty cards. That is when they collected it and they created a profile of the people and they built on it. They also go to stores and scan the stores. Let's say they go to Park and Spanaway Safeway, they have a deal with the company, and they scan the store and they say, well, this is the brand of coffee that sells well in this area. So it is very local, and of course they use an algorithm to kind of drill it down and say, okay, well, this, oh, excellent, we got it back. So let me go back and show you the first one, the fabulous one that we were talking about. So here's how we get to the Pierce County Library's website, piercecountylibrary.org. And then we have to select what is called e-sources, the electronic resources right here. And then I want to choose the business and investing. Here's my subject. So I want business and investing. By the way, in addition to those, we have Value Line and Morningstar subscriptions, and you can access those for free. Remotely, you have to log into this database, so you put in your library card number. And then you have a password, which is usually the last four of your phone number, and then you can access that. By default, when it comes up, it shows the entire United States. So you have to choose a location or multi-locations to look up data for this. Let's try to connect. Let's see if it's coming up. I'm going to close that one. Okay. Now, what can you do with demographics now? The quickest way to tell you that is by actually looking at these tutorials. How to generate a demographic report, how to create a sales lead list, how to find a business, how to use the map, find a person, how to access the census data, sizing your market, finding your competitors, choosing a location for your business, and assessing the market risk of a business. All of these you can do with demographics now. Basically what you do is, if you're looking for demographic information, is that first you choose your location. You can choose multiple locations to compare, or you can just select one. Let's say in this case I want to choose the library's address. And now what it does, it will find the address and it will show me the 1, 3, and 5 mile radius from that location. And it will do a comparison. Basically what you're seeing right here is this just demographic snapshot. It's just the population, age, that sort of thing. Very simple, basic stuff that comes from the Census Bureau. But what is exciting is that you can actually look at any one of these 60 reports in here. Detailed information about consumer expenditure, like you want to know how much men spend on belts, you can find out. So you can figure out the size of the market for belt in 1 mile radius from the Park and Spanaway Library. I can also select multiple locations and then see them side by side and say, wow, I'm in the belts business, so Bellevue is the place for me if I want to go and open a store or sell belts. Or the other information that is here, not just the consumer expenditure, you can also see the demographic information, comparing people and segmentation. That's the funnest part of it. And here it's called mosaic. So here's the mosaic population. This is the royalty to poverty thing that we were talking about before. And here you see the comparison. It says the one is American royalty. There's 0%. We don't have anybody that rich in that area, like Park and Spanaway Library. About 2.5% in Bellevue will fit in that category. When I ran Bellevue, it was about 2.5% of the population. So what this does is it helps me figure out who is the dominant group in this area, what is the largest population that fits in one of these categories. And it is rolling the dice. It says it is rolling the dice P56. So I want to find that information and see a little bit more information about that group. So here I'm going to go into the information and help and look at the detail for mosaic. These whimsical names really are very aptly fit. So here is P56. And this is a 20-page report about this group. It says middle-aged, mid-scale income, single and divorced individuals in secondary cities. And it tells you about unpretentious, individualistic, opportunity seekers, TV addicts, meager means, open-minded, credit cards, so on and so forth. And it tells you about the ranking, how they rank compared to the rest of the population. And if you scroll down more, you can actually see how we live, who we are, even the digital responses. How do they respond to emails and things like that? Do they go online? Do they watch TV? You know, what TV channels are likely to watch? And this one is about the household, the gender of the household. It has index and percentage mean of it, so you can very quickly tell if it is, you know, index being 100, is it above average, below average, and then how many percent from the mean does it deviate. So there's really quite a bit of information, including the financial information. If you were to run a report like that, and you can just go online and buy it, you probably have to pay $140 for that. And you can run it for any location you want. You can run it for multiple locations, and you look at that. Besides that, and having the other demographic reports, you can also use a map or run a quick report that will put, kind of executive report that put everything together. And that you can use one of these wizards, if you will. Let's say I want to compare locations, or I want to report on a site prospect for my business. Then I quickly select the location. And this part of it is a little slow because you have to go through the whole process of selecting. You go through the state and the county and the city, so it is not a quick 1, 2, 3. We have talked to the company, they're hoping to fix that. This is a quick way, or you can look up the information on the map, the very same information when you're looking at, you can actually see it on the map, and then you put a layer on this map. It's a lot brighter, by the way, on my computer than it is on the screen here. And you can see that the theme that says theme variable, basic variables, total population. So what you're looking at is the total population for the city of Tacoma. And if I remove this geography to make it a little bit easier to see, so that's the map of Tacoma, and here is the population. It's just a little slow to render the map again. Or you can choose from other variables, and this is the fun part again. I was talking to you about, say, alimony or donation to church and that sort of thing. So here's a list of what I can choose from. This is my menu. So I want to go into consumer expenditure. And this is also projections for the next 5 years. So I want to see the projections for that. And I want to know how much people spend on Of course, you have all those categories that you can expand, like education, health, alcohol, miscellaneous, and this time I'm looking for cash contributions. And here's alimony, child support. So let's take a look at cash contributions to churches and religious groups. Again, this is slow to connect. The Wi-Fi is catching up with it. You will see it on, and then you can see the map, the legend that tells you the darker the color, the more contributions people are making to churches. You can also find the amounts by running that report differently. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask that. There's so much in here that, like I said, the class usually goes about 3 hours because we get into details and they have computers hands-on and they have practice and things like that for them. So this is one of the databases, and the other one I wanted to highlight a little bit is the $1 Million Directory. You can look up businesses just going into the directory, just a basic search, or you can actually go and do an advanced search. In the advanced search, you get to choose the location. Let's say I want county, so I have to select, since it is international, I have to select North America and then go to the US. And then choose a state. I'm just going to leave it at the state. I won't go any farther than that, so it takes too long. Okay, so here's Washington State. Well, since we're here, let's do Pierce County. So here's Pierce, and after I choose that, I'll add that to my criteria. And next, I want to find businesses that will fit a certain criteria. Really, it is important to have the NAICS code, North American Industry Classification Code, for your industry, because this database is entirely driven by that. Either SIC code or the NAICS code. If the code, which is a self-designated code for your business, if that is selected incorrectly, then you're not going to show up when these reports are run. So let's say I want eating places. I'm looking for restaurants. So here's the accommodations and food service. I'm just going to expand that and then find food service, drinking places. I'll choose that one. The other one would be hotels and motels, accommodations, add to criteria. And then run this report. So basically what this does, it will find all these businesses for you. My location was Washington State. I could have selected zip code, area code, city, census designated place, metropolitan, all kinds of stuff, metropolitan areas. It also tells you how many employees they have and their sales. And if you select one of these businesses, it will give you information about that business, such as the executives, line of business, their address. So here's the executive detail, manager, president, so on and so forth. Also, you can find information in detail about this industry. Let's say I want to know more about this line of business. So I want to go into what is called the First Research Database. And this allows me to search for businesses and give me a lot more information. Let's say coffee shops. I mean, you're looking for something else, but let's see what this does about coffee shops. You're thinking about opening a coffee shop and you want to know what the gross margin is. How much can you expect to make owning a coffee shop? Well, this gives you a fabulous report. It gives you first of all, the call prep, questions you have to ask before you open a coffee shop. How are you going to deal with these issues? You're going to have answers for these issues. Assuming that you did and you still want to be in this business, then next you want to select and find information about financial data related to this business. Again, there's quite a bit of information that gives you, even if you're not opening a coffee shop, but you are supplying to someone that has a coffee shop, you want to know about their business. You want to know what issues they're facing. You want to know what opportunities there are for them. So you might be able to provide something for them or help them with that, or your product can help solve a problem for them. So here's the financial information. This often goes into a business plan. If you don't have that information and you want to do a business plan, it will be very difficult to figure this stuff out. So here it tells you the gross margin is 84.9% for a coffee shop. Also tells you that they have looked at 39,008 companies, of which 48 were over 50 million, and the majority, 38,000 plus, were under 5 million. You can see from here that officer compensation is 3.7% for the large companies and 4.5% for the smaller ones. Advertising, sales, operating expenses, all of that, and the balance sheet, which often you need, again, just to know how you are doing, or if you want to start a new business, you need to have that put in your, find that information for your area. And the fabulous ratios, quick ratios, how solvent is the company if they, short-term loans came due and you wanted to pay them, how able are you? Like the quick ratio says, for every dollar you owe, you only have 73 cents. So you will not be able to pay. That tells you about the conditions and how the financial situation is. And if you need more information about any one of these, you just select one, and then it will give you the glossary so you know what they're talking about when they say gross margin, what the definition is. Also, a very nice tool here is that you can find information about the state. You can find information about different, and provinces in fact. Sorry, it's a little slow. You can find data about the state employment, housing prices, job growth, all kinds of stuff, which fields are actually growing. If you were to prospect an industry and you want to say you want to start a business and you want to know what industry is growing right now. Housing and construction is growing right now. Sorry, guys. Give it time. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. There's very limited time to do that. If you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer your questions.
Thank you.